In a world increasingly defined by asymmetric warfare, Ukraine has discovered a new way to shake the foundations of Russian infrastructure without firing a single missile. Over the last week, Moscow's massive air transport system has suffered what experts are now calling an unprecedented peacetime collapse, all triggered by a few low-cost Ukrainian drones. On the surface, the event might appear like a temporary disturbance: flight delays, angry travelers, missed connections. But dig deeper, and the picture gets much more serious. This incident reveals how vulnerable Russia's domestic systems are to unconventional tactics. In a stunning twist, the battlefield has moved from the trenches of eastern Ukraine to the departure halls of Moscow's busiest airports. Let's start with the facts. Since May 6th, drone activity over Moscow prompted Russian authorities to restrict airspace, triggering a chain reaction of delays and cancellations. According to reports from the Moscow Times and RIA Novosti, over 350 flights were either delayed or canceled in just 48 hours. More than 60,000 passengers were left in limbo. The airports impacted, Sheremetyevo, Domodedovo, and Vnukovo, aren't minor regional stops. These are the arteries of Russia's aviation system. This isn't just about passengers being inconvenienced. Russia spans 11 time zones, and aviation is a lifeline for everything, from medical supply chains to government operations to trade. Blocking that artery doesn't just delay flights, it bleeds the economy. Civil aviation analysts cited in Bloomberg estimate that every hour of airport shutdown in Moscow translates to between 1.2 and 1.5 billion rubles in lost productivity. That's roughly $15 million per hour. And all of this from the threat of drones, not actual drone strikes. As of May 8th, no confirmed drone attacks had occurred during the most chaotic period. Yet fear alone was enough to freeze Russia's capital. Now, look beyond the numbers. Turkish Airlines and Pegasus Airlines, two major international carriers, responded by canceling all outbound flights from Moscow and St. Petersburg. Kommersant, a Russian financial daily, reported that more than 15,000 passengers expecting to travel abroad were affected. This collapse is no longer a national inconvenience, it's become a geopolitical message. Ukraine can rattle Russia's image of domestic control without even touching its soil. On the ground, the chaos was visceral. Footage obtained by Novaya Gazeta Europe showed families camped out in terminals, people sleeping on the floor, and travelers lining up for overpriced water bottles, some priced at $15 apiece. Toilets overflowed, garbage piled up. At one point, even high-ranking officials from the presidential administration were denied access to VIP lounges due to overcrowding. They were seen sitting on the floor alongside everyday passengers. That image alone, Russia's elite waiting like commoners in a crippled airport, speaks volumes about the symbolic fallout. And this wasn't just isolated to Moscow. Delays and plane reroutes triggered a domino effect. Airports from Barnaul to Norilsk to Tomsk were all impacted. According to Meduza, more than a dozen regional hubs saw cascading delays due to aircraft not arriving on time from the capital. Moscow is not just a city, it is the hub that connects Russia's vast territories. So, why does this matter? Because Ukraine's tactic demonstrates the strategic power of minimal investment. A handful of drones, not even launched during the critical hours, have caused an economic, psychological, and logistical shock to a global superpower. This is warfare redefined. It's low cost, high impact, and hard to defend against. Military strategist Mark Galeotti told The Guardian that Ukraine's drone strategy is part of a larger shift. It's about undermining Russia's sense of invulnerability. When the capital's skies aren't safe, it creates panic, not just for civilians, but for decision-makers too. The Russian government, for its part, tried to maintain composure. The Ministry of Transport promised a return to normalcy by 6 p.m. on May 8th. But on the ground, reality told a different story. Cancellations continued. Rescheduled flights were canceled again. Passengers were left without updates. Staff shortages only compounded the problem. One Aeroflot staffer, speaking anonymously to Radio Free Europe, described the terminals as a war zone of anxiety. Even the Kremlin's tightly controlled media couldn't hide the optics. Social media exploded with images of frustrated passengers, broken terminals, and confused staff. The damage to Russia's carefully curated image of domestic stability is already done. And here's the most important part. This was likely just a test. Ukraine didn't follow up with more drone strikes. They didn't need to. The collapse had already happened. Analysts believe that this might become a recurring strategy. Use drone threats to repeatedly and unpredictably shut down critical infrastructure. With Russia already stretched thin militarily and economically, defending every airport, oil depot, or power grid becomes an impossible task. What we're witnessing is a shift in how war is fought, not on battlefields alone, but in terminals, in trade routes, and in people's routines. It's a war on normalcy. And Ukraine has just reminded the world that even superpowers can be brought to their knees without a single building falling. This is more than a headline. It's a glimpse of the future of conflict.